what's going on out there, YouTube family? This is Sammy Leggy here representing TeamJVS. I am back here again for another TV show review. This is another show from Netflix, and this show is called Archive 81. So you have a archivist in Dan. Dan is hired by a person named Virgil. Virgil is a CEO of a Fortune 500 company. And he basically is saying to him, look, like, you're good at your job. We want to be very discreet with this. We want to put you to a remote location. And we just need you to take these tapes and any materials that we have at our disposal to help you restore these tapes back to their preservation, what they need. And at the end of the day, you get $100,000 out of it, right? And so Dan, Dan's got an interesting past. Dan is being played by Mamoudou, Athie, and the last thing I saw him in was Black Boss. He did a really good job in that, but he also was in Uncorked in 2020. He's been in a lot of different things. I loved him in Underwater, and Virgil's played by Donovan. But when Dan starts to uncover what is going on with these restored tapes, he starts to see that this is all the tapes were burned and all of them are being retrieved from a fire, that he is trying to understand how and why, because the person that is recording all this material is a young lady named Melody. Melody is being played by Dina, Shihabi, and Melody is trying to research this building called the Vessel. And the Vessel is a hotel location that, she, for her thesis, for her PhD, she's trying to go and interview everybody at the hotel and get their perspective on this location, because it's very historic, but also has a tragic past as well that also incoherently involves fire. Now, what did I think about this show as a whole? The prospect of it was very intriguing in and of itself. Like, I think that Mamoudou as Dan is the focal point, and like, he can act. Like, I honestly, just off of him investigating what is going on, I was invested. Like, I was invested in the sense that I didn't know, one, that Dan was multi-layered. I was kind of like, okay, he seems like a really geeky, he just like loves old tapes, old movies. Like, who doesn't? I do, and he's also very detail oriented, very meticulous about what he does. But then specifically to this job, it starts to really get him. And you start to find out that Dan has a lot of other issues that I don't want to say too much, but let's just say that everything's not what it seems. Everything that's going on in the show, like, you start to unravel and like, oh, okay, this is a mystery kind of thing, or maybe this is a thriller. Like, whoa, where did this supernatural element come from? Where did this violence come from? Where did this gore come from? This ended up starting as one thing, and on certain blurred lines, ended up in the horror category, in the supernatural category, and I don't want to spoil anything, but it is a wild ride. And it was one that I regret watching at nighttime, because I was sitting there watching and I was just like, I'm kind of nervous here. I don't know what's about to happen. And one of the things, like the found footage thing, that's been going on for years now. Like, it's not, ever since, Paranormal Activity or Blair Witch Project or even Cloverfield, like, it's been overused. But the way they utilize it in this show, they're taking a concept where you're like, all right, the narrative is he's trying to preserve these tapes to try to figure out what happened, but you're also getting a full arc of a story going on with the character Melody that Dina is playing. And Melody, she's trying to understand certain things about her life. She's trying to understand certain things about this location. She meets a young girl named Jess. Jess is played by Ariana Neal. And she can act. She does such a really good job. Like, her scenes are some of the best in the show from an acting standpoint. But it's just really intriguing where the rabbit hole goes. And it gets very dark. And I think that the only slight that I have with this show is I think that the cinematography could be a little bit better. Like, some points, it was kind of like this felt really TV showish. You know what I mean? Like, some certain cinematography in the way that it's captured and stuff like that, it's kind of like, oh, wow, this could be a little bit tighter. But then you kind of like, this is stretched out between 8 episodes, technically. And so if this was a movie, maybe a lot more, the budget would be condensed in that, but then you wouldn't have a good enough flushed out story. So it's kind of like, what is the compromise? You go and allow certain characters like Virgil or Jess or Samuel or Melody to be flushed out to a point where you're like, oh, narratively speaking, this is very intriguing and very entertaining. Now, the thing about it is that when it starts to dabble in the supernatural elements of stuff, like it was a lot of pause for me because I did not know I didn't expect this was where this was going to go. And it gets very dark. And is very enticing in terms of where they allow the characters to go. And there's a lot of questions. There's a lot of questions that even by the end of the season don't get even answered. As a matter of fact, the end of the season like ends in a way you're like, wait, what? What does that mean? So I think from an entertainment standpoint, I think that people are going to really enjoy this. I just don't know if this is something that I would say you should binge. I feel like from a night to night standpoint, this would actually be really interesting. If this was on, I don't know what station, maybe, Now Netflix is the best place for it, but I feel like it bodes that allowing a little bit of breathing room instead of just regurgitation, going, like, it is bingeable. I'm not saying it's not, but I think that it allows a little bit more filter when you kind of like take 3 episodes and like, whoa, let me take a step back from what I just watched. And then the next night you watch another 3. It's just more exciting like that. And I think that the way that it's directed and the way the narrative goes, I think that it allows you to be able to feel everything that's really happening, which normally a lot of these shows kind of don't do very well. But there are some blanket points. There are characters that make stupid decisions. A lot of the stupid decisions mean like it feels like it's just done for plot. It's not believable. Certain things that are happening specifically with the character Melody and sometimes even the character Dan, but specifically Melody towards the second half of the season, like I understand the situation's getting really dire and really hectic, but there's certain decisions he makes, it just doesn't make any sense. And then certain characters that start to come and interject themselves, they mess up the pacing a little bit. But the sense and the prime aspect of the blurred lines of the supernatural and what is real, what is not, is very intriguing. And also the story, you're drawn in because you want to see where things are going to go. And I think that is the biggest asset of Archive AV1. And I think that I'm curious to see where it goes next. That's all I can really say. I'd rest this at a 7.5 or an 8 out of 10. I definitely recommend you go and check it out. It's very entertaining, but do know that there's sex, there's violence, there's drug usage, not a lot of drug usage, but there's the supernatural elements of it can get very, very dark. And I don't want to talk about what the subject matter is, but this is not for kids. This is not something. This is something you should definitely screen ahead of time. When you get to 3 episodes in, you'll understand exactly what's really happening, what's really going on with the tapes. So just be cognizant of that. Let me know your thoughts of Archive AV1, and this drops January the 14th. Hopefully you guys enjoy this review. Keep it locked. JVS, we ain't gonna stop. We have a lot more reviews coming, you guys. Peace, everybody.
Falling off the top